Horror Girls presents, what is the creepiest, scariest, or strangest experience you've ever had in your life? Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to support our channel. 1. I lived in North Chicago in the 90s. I was the only white person in my neighborhood. I didn't have a car, so I'd take the bus to work and back, but at night, the drop-off was a few blocks from my neighborhood and I'd walk home in the dark. I'm female. Never had a problem. One day, during the daytime, I was walking back from getting some groceries, and a cop car pulled up beside me. White officer, asking what I was doing. Told him I was walking home. He insisted the neighborhood wasn't safe and that I should get in the car. There is no way that officer was assigned to that neighborhood. I'd met the other officers on patrol, no idea who this officer was. But he kept insisting that I get in the car and kept following me at a slow speed. Honestly, the vibes were not good. I went to a random house, told the officer I was home, opened the door, and walked in. It wasn't my home, didn't know the people that lived there. They looked so surprised that this white girl was suddenly in their house. Told them what was going on, and even they were like, WTF, no white officers are assigned to this area. They let me stay with them in the house for a few hours, until the officer left, and then walked me home. 2. I was getting ready to leave work for the night and the night manager, who had just returned from Iraq, came out to smoke. I remember walking out the door of the Walgreens, feeling utterly terrified, and I turned immediately back into the store. When the manager came back inside, I said, I need you to walk me all the way to my car. Something's not right. He was like, yeah, sure. So he walked with me all the way to my car, checked it, shut my door, and he watched me drive away. I found out 2 days later that somebody had gruesomely raped and killed a woman in the parking lot across the street from my store, on the night I had my manager walk me to my car. Holy fuck. That was almost me. 3. I may have posted this before, but I'm not sure. I moved into my current home 3 years ago. We originally planned to not have a TV in the bedroom and have a cool hangout spot in the main living room, and the kids had a separate den. This worked out well for maybe the first 6 months to a year. I started to not like watching TV at night in the living room. There was something wrong with the lighting in there, and it just bothered me. It felt like the normal shadows in there were constantly moving. After a few weeks of just being quiet about that and the weird bumps and noises, I finally said something to my son. He seemed relieved that I could see it too. It always looked like someone was walking back and forth behind us when we were on the couch, and sometimes we'd see the silhouette of something reflected on the TV. Now we avoid the living room at night but have noticed a weird dark shadow in the shape of a tall person in our bedroom doorway. It never fully comes into the room, but it really creeps us out. Our pets react to it too. 4. I love rain and thunderstorms. My mom knew this, and on rainy days she'll let me stand out on our metal deck. One day when I was 5, I was standing on the deck and the rain quickly became a thunderstorm. I said nothing because she would immediately pull me in. Lighting started flashing all around me. Suddenly there was a huge flash of light in front of my eyes and the loudest boom I've ever heard. I squatted down and closed my eyes. I could see white even though my eyes were closed, my ears were ringing, and I can smell ozone. I swear lightning struck right in front of me. After what felt like a few minutes, I heard my name and opened my eyes. Mom was calling for me to go inside. The weird thing is the smell of ozone was gone and everything just looked normal. The next day I went outside to the spot and found the deck deformed, but it looked like it had been painted over years ago. I'm really not sure what happened. Did I just make all of that up in my head? 5. I'm not sure if I'd call it creepy, but it's definitely strange and weird. My mom passed away in 2007 from an overdose of heroin. She has 5 sons and I'm really close with my oldest brother. I lived with him and his wife and my niece and nephew for a few years while finishing college. While living with them a couple of years back, this is maybe 2016 or 2017, I had a dream about my mom one night. I was sitting in this very old mansion in a hallway, with beautiful wood floor interiors, wooden furniture, incredible paintings on the walls, etc. While sitting there, a man walked up to me and said, "She's ready to see you now," and escorted me through some large wooden doors into a sitting room with a fireplace. My mom was sitting in a chair and I took the opposite. I still remember the conversation we had crystal clear. She forgave me for not answering the phone the last time she tried calling me, asked me about my brothers, asked me how school was going, and some other things. While talking, she abruptly stopped, looked up slightly and to the left as if someone was calling her, and said, "My time's up, honey. I have to go now. Take care of yourself and your brothers. I love you all." I woke up then. The weird part is I told my brother about the dream in the morning, and he said he had a dream about our mom too the night prior. Slightly different setting but the same conversation. I called my other brother in Reno and he said he also dreamed of her that same night. I'm an agnostic leaning toward atheism, but I'll be damned if that wasn't the closest I've ever felt to there being an afterlife. I sort of questioned putting this on here, but too many of these stories remind me of what I went through. Too much chalking these feelings up to something to do with the paranormal. I'm going to leave out a lot of details because it's kind of triggering and sensitive. So, I thought we had a ghost in our house when I was a kid. I don't remember exactly when it started, but my little sister was the first to say something. Something like, "There was someone in the window last night." We would hear scratching at the window, we would hear the crunching of the leaves outside, footsteps close by. "Possums," my mom said. "Don't worry about it." After a few months, clothes from the washing line went missing. Mostly underwear. This went on for over a year. "It's just mixed up in the wash," my mom said. I started waking up at night just knowing someone was there. Hearing breathing, often heavy, and just knowing that I must keep pretending to be asleep. Soon enough footsteps would be fading down the hallway, and I would just sort of go back to sleep. I would wake up to this pretty randomly, sometimes a few times a week, sometimes once a month. It went on for a while. There's a ghost, I thought. Getting up to go to the bathroom at night, I always felt this panic, but weirdly this instinct to act calm. I bet someone died in the bathroom, I thought. The scariest incident happened one morning when I got up early for school, but more importantly, for cartoons. As I sat in the lounge room, I just had the sense that someone was there, just outside the door. I remember so clearly how sick I felt, how frozen with sheer terror. And then the front door opens and closes. Someone running away. I didn't think. I didn't mention it. About 2 years after that, my mom called the police. Guess what? Not a ghost. It was a friend of one of my older siblings. There was no reason to suspect him. No red flags. But it was him. It gets weird after that, but that's an entirely different story I don't feel comfortable sharing. Buy security cameras. Believe in ghosts if you want and be as open-minded as you want. But please be just as open-minded to the possibility of these eerie feelings being because of an actual human standing over you at night, hiding in your house and moving your stuff around. Just do something to protect yourself. 6. God, this is terrible, but I had a really messed up childhood. My parents were not together and I was being traded off every weekend. It was my dad's weekend and I went over to his house. He was acting super weird the whole day, but I didn't notice it much as a little kid until I looked back on it. I remember him taking me and my little sister to run errands with him. He ran into different places and me and my sister played in the back seat. He stopped at a friend's house and came back flustered and angry and sped out of the driveway. The next couple hours were normal and we were fine, but our dad was super anxious. I remember it being dark outside when he told me and my little sister to get in the car. We drive to a rundown motel on the bad side of town and get out of the car. I asked him what we were doing there and he told me we were hanging out with some of his friends. I didn't think anything of it and we went into the motel room. It was a small room with one bed and a jacuzzi tube beside the tube. Our dad started drinking with a group of guys in the hotel and he told us we could go swimming in the hot tube. We didn't have bathing suits, so he had us in there with just underwear and a t-shirt. After a couple of minutes, he left without saying anything to us. I asked the guys where my dad went and he told us he would be back in a couple of hours. Something in my 7-year-old brain didn't feel right about the situation. One of the guys started talking to my sister and me and acting really friendly. He told us he wanted to get in the hot tube with us and started to undress completely, exposing himself to us. He tried to get really close to us and I held my 3-year-old sister close. This man was completely naked in a hot tube with 2 little girls and our dad wasn't there to stop it. I was really scared and acted like I was taking my sister to the bathroom and went out the front door of the motel, still wet and in our underwear. I held my sister while she cried and we walked down the hallway away from the room. Luckily, there was a lady in the hall and she asked if I was lost. I asked her if I could call my mom on her phone to come and get us. Thankfully, my mom came right away, and after that, my dad lost visitation rights. I'm so glad that they forced us to memorize our parents' phone numbers at school as well. I'm grateful that woman was in the hallway before one of those guys found us. Update: I just found out yesterday he got arrested for domestic battery. I hope he gets what he deserves in prison. 7. This was like 40 years ago. My mom and dad and I were driving in a very rural part of Indiana. I was about 10 years old and sitting in the back seat. As we crossed a short bridge over a stream, I looked out my window and saw a naked woman tied to a tree. I told my dad what I saw, and he reversed the car back over the bridge. To this day, I am grateful to him for believing a little kid. Anyway, as we drove back over the stream, we could see that the property owner had tied a mannequin to a tree with a keep out sign over her head. Sick mofo. That haunted me for years. 8. Waking up half naked in a bed with a man I don't know who is not only kissing me but has his hand down my pants. That day saw me attend a large training session for a business that put on a meal and accommodation, and I went with a strong mindset to behave myself and make a good impression, so was not going to be drinking excessively. I have no recollection of much of the night after the meal and can only think my drink was spiked. Scariest moment, and it could have been far worse, but managed to fight him off. As a heterosexual man, it's really made me vigilant for those around me. 9. Not scary, just incredibly strange. I went skiing with some friends a few years ago. One of my friends, John, had lost his phone the previous week and was borrowing a phone from his other friend, Sarah. As we were in the car about to leave at the end of the day, John realizes he has lost Sarah's phone on the slopes. A few minutes later, I get a call on my phone from John's lost phone, which is actually Sarah's phone. The person on the other end of the line tells me they found the phone on the slopes and call the first number in the call log, me, to get it back to its rightful owner. I tell him where John lives and ask if he lives nearby to organize a pickup, and he tells me his daughter also lives at the same college. It turns out the kind stranger who picked up John's, Sarah's, phone, was no other than Sarah's own father. 10. 2 come to mind. 1. Was 16 and my car broke down in the middle of a very busy intersection. I was pretty flustered as I could tell I was making traffic really congested. Went to call for a tow when a man came out of nowhere in a jumpsuit mechanic wear and just said, "Get in, I'll push," and he pushed me pretty far and around the corner. I immediately got out to thank him and he was gone. This area was very out in the open, there's no chance he could have walked away or even ran away without me seeing. There were also no car shops near this area. I looked everywhere and even asked some people on the street if they saw him, and nobody said they had ever seen him. It was a really bizarre event. 2. Working as a CNA, my shift ended at 11:30. It was New Year's and a resident was in her late 90s, all friends and family had passed away and she was there on hospice. She was the last resident I assisted with medications and bedtime routine when she grabbed my hand and just said, "Please stay and watch the fireworks with me, I don't want to be alone tonight." It was just something about her eyes that I couldn't say no. I ended up staying for about another hour and she told me stories about her childhood and gave me life advice. When I came into work the next day, I hear she had passed away during the night, shortly after I left. In the healthcare field, it's always amazed me how some people just know when it's their time to go. I'll never forget that moment. 11. Worked emptying an old house. The house was infested with cockroaches. The whole house felt depressing. When we emptied the basement, it always felt like someone was right behind us. There was a cut rope hanging from the ceiling. The woman that lived there had hanged herself. We didn't find out till the last week of work. We never went down to the basement alone after that. 12. The strangest experience was when I was a senior in high school and I was borderline suicidal. It was pretty bad. I was looking at the railing of the second floor of my parents' house, trying to convince myself that hanging myself wouldn't be that bad because it wouldn't be more than a few minutes of suffering. It just got worse and worse, and I just about reached my breaking point one Friday afternoon. I hid it well though. No one knew there was something wrong with me, not my parents, not my friends, not my teachers. On the drive home, I wasn't sure what came over me, but I started spilling my guts to him. I told him everything, how I was feeling, how scared I was. It started off as me kind of laughing about it and making jokes, but I ended up breaking down and crying. He talked me out of it. He said a lot of very kind things and opened himself up to me, reminding me that it would devastate my parents that I was loved, that there were other options, and this wasn't the end of my life. He said it had been years since he had cried, but seeing me cry almost made him cry too. Before he dropped me off, he said he had a weird feeling that day after school that I would need a ride home. He said he went into the library to look for me but didn't see me, so he left. And that was when we ran into each other. I don't know if he saved my life that day, but I'm forever grateful for whatever weird instinct allowed us to run into each other. 13. There was a day I was really sick and was sleeping almost all day. I woke up almost every 3 hours to take some painkillers and to eat some food and then fell asleep afterward. I woke up around 2 or 3 a.m. to see a shadowy figure sitting at the end of my bed. It looked like it was facing me, but I could only make out its outline as everything was too dark to see. I talked to my cousin once about seeing this shadowy figure and said she saw it walking to the garage and follow only for it to disappear. 14. Ran into a bear while jogging in the woods between my neighborhood and a nearby office park. The bear made no move to attack me, and it looked about as spooked as I was, but holy crap, that was terrifying. I just walked backward slowly until it was out of view and I just booked it. The best part is I passed 2 ladies standing on their lawns about 2 minutes before, and when I came back I told them about the bear, and all they said was it a big one? I said yeah. They said they have seen him around. Like what? Why didn't you tell me about this 2 minutes ago? For reference, I live in a suburb about 30 minutes outside Seattle. Bears are more common around here than you might think, but we almost never see them. Recent deforestation and development have pushed them out of their habitats, and the one that spooked me was probably lost and scared, poor thing. Frown. 15. So I was sitting at home alone one evening when my phone started buzzing because of an incoming call. I reached out for it, and when I looked at the screen, I was very confused. The caller ID was that of my own number. In that split second, I had just assumed it was a glitch and canceled the call. Seconds later, the same thing happened. I canceled the call once more. When the same thing happened the third time, I felt kind of freaked out. But I plucked up my courage to answer the call. After I said hello, there was nothing but silence. Then I heard some labored breathing noises, almost like a whisper, on the other end. That did it for me. I was so freaked out then, that I just hung up. Not the creepiest or scariest, but certainly one of the strangest.
Not leaving us so soon, are you?
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. And feel free to leave a comment or email the Horror Girls with suggestions, your own scary experience, original fiction, disconcerting videos, or anything horror related that you would like to share. We'd also love to help promote indie or up-and-coming horror authors by posting a book review or your book trailer. Email us for more info.